And thanks for starting your week off with the KSFO Morning Show with Brian Sussman and Katie Green on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Well, Brian has the day off. I'm Brad, his little brother, and, Mom called and says, "Can you fill in for your brother?" No, it didn't actually happen like that. We've been joking about that all morning, though. But you know what? I'm absolutely as honored as can be, because I know this is one of my brother's favorite guests and one of my favorite columnists, best-selling author, and the reason AnnCoulter.com is around. Ann Coulter joining us right now. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's an honor on my part. You're actually one of the few that has actually talked to both of the BSs, Brian and Brad Sussman. So I don't know if you should feel hurt or feel joy in your heart. Hey,
I like that you guys can substitute for one another. That's very convenient.
It works out nicely. Hey, Ann, a lot of stuff going on politically.
Yeah.
I got to talk first of all about George Will leaving the GOP. Are people just downtrodden and, crying on the floor? Oh, my gosh, George Will's leaving the GOP. I thought he left a long time ago, actually.
Yes, I think most people did. On one hand, I say good riddance, but on the other hand, considering today, last week we had the 4-4 decision on immigration, whether we live in a constitutional democracy, or if the President of the United States can simply announce laws that were considered and never passed and just grant millions upon millions of illegal immigrants amnesty. 4-4 decision, that's going to be decided by the next Supreme Court. And today we woke up to this decision of Texas's abortion law being overturned, with 3 dissenters, Justice Thomas Alito, and wait, who's the only other hope we have on that court? Well, not Kennedy.
I think it was Roberts, wasn't it? It was Roberts.
Right,
yeah.
right. It was Kennedy who was with the liberals on this one. So, don't tell me you care about abortion or immigration, or I promise you the first law the Supreme Court will take up if Hillary is president is going to be the Heller decision. This will be the end of the Second Amendment in America. Justice Thomas, one of the youngest justices, I think is 70 years old. The next president is going to have at least one, possibly 3 or 4 Supreme Court nominees. That determines that's like our Brexit. That is,
yeah, that's true.
That is, if the liberals take over, we will be ruled by a very left-wing bureaucracy. You won't be able to decide issues by going out and voting, which was kind of the idea. We got from the Magna Carta to the Glorious Revolution to our Declaration of Independence and Constitution. It is just this constant movement. I mean, the Supreme Court ruling over us is exactly like Brexit. With these unaccountable bureaucrats deciding really awfully detailed things about our lives that we have no say over anymore. So these never-Trumpers, you see they were always fake, phony frauds to begin with. They want the good opinion of our liberal overseers, and that's more important than any issues they ever pretended to care about.
They're the inside the Beltway crowd that I kind of feel, and they just want to, make sure their friends are happy. Like I said, appease the liberals. We're talking with the best-selling author and columnist Ann Coulter. Find more about AnnCoulter.com. Speaking of Brexit, everybody got it wrong. All the political pundits, all the, all the people who were saying, "Oh, I'm sure this is going to happen." Even Farage at one point thought this thing was done. I mean, all the pollsters really missed this.
Yes, and it's not that its passage by itself helped Trump, but it is the exact same movement. For us to have countries to be countries, to have their national sovereignty back and not be ruled over by bureaucrats who aren't letting us have a vote. I mean, we voted. How many times do Americans have to say we want less immigration? This goes back to, well, probably before this, but just in the last decade, George Bush tried to push amnesty on us. That was his big second-term initiative. He was not only shut down, but that's what led to Republicans leaving the House and the Senate. It wasn't the Iraq War. Suddenly people changed their mind about the Iraq War. And in fact, at polls at the time, this is all in my book, Adios America, it showed that more people approved of the Iraq War than approved of Bush's proposal for amnesty. So he blows away the House and the Senate when Republicans say, okay, well, screw you. You're not on our side at all. John McCain, Mr. Amnesty, runs for president. He loses. We had the Dave Bratt election, taking out a member of the majority, Eric Cantor. There was Proposition 187 before that in California, Proposition 200 in Arizona. Every time Americans have been able to vote on immigration, they've said enough,
right.
We need a break. And still they keep pushing amnesty. I mean, Marco Rubio ran for Senate claiming to be a Tea Partier, denouncing amnesty, and he hadn't been that great on immigration in the Florida legislature, so talk radio host got him to swear he would not support amnesty. He swore on his mother's life on one program in Florida. And he gets to Washington, and what does he do? He starts pushing amnesty. This is what the Trump candidacy is about. It is quite parallel to what is happening with Brexit. The people speak, and both political parties, I'm sorry to say my own political party, well, not anymore, because now my political party is the party of Trump. Yay!
Right.
But until Trump, both political parties have been aligned against us to do the bidding of Wall Street, to protect the big corporations, to bring in cheap labor. They're getting massively rich, living with a level of degeneracy not seen since the Tsar's court. And meanwhile, Americans out in America haven't seen their wages or salaries go up for 20 years. Manufacturing has been hollowed out of this country. And the reason I think the polls, I don't know as much about why the polls were so wrong on Brexit, and they were, including the betting polls that are supposed to be so accurate because people are putting their money on the line. But I am quite sure whether it'll be enough, I mean, who knows? I think Trump has a pretty good shot, but that's why we hold elections. But I do discount the polls. For one thing, pollsters, it's not their fault. They have to ask, did you, and often they'll check if they're good pollsters, did you vote in the last election, and did you vote in the election before that? That's not what makes you a likely voter. And a pollster can't just sit back and say, well, okay, this guy hasn't voted for 20 years, but I think he's going to vote this time. You just can't do that if you're a pollster.
Yeah, but if you want to change the headlines, you will.
We know from Trump. We know from the primaries he is bringing out people who have not voted for 20 years. We know 20,000 people in Massachusetts switched their registration from Democrat to Republican to vote for Trump, 60,000 in Pennsylvania. So I do think there's good reason to believe the polls will not capture the fervor for Donald Trump. And finally, whatever you think of Donald Trump, and look, I'm a wasp from Connecticut. I know he's a little vulgar. I feel your pain. But we're talking about saving the country now. Let's get the voting and democracy back to us. Have borders again. Do not dissolve our national borders. Do something for Americans who have been out of work for 20 years with these ridiculously awful trade deals that are good for the globalist plutocrats but terrible for actual Americans, the people who already live here. It is one thing the government should care about, the people who already live here, whereas all of our policies, whether it's trade, NATO, wars, immigration, it's all based on how can we help the rest of the world. Well, no, America needs a little me time now.
Absolutely right. Ann Coulter, well said. Ann Coulter, best-selling columnist and author, and also AnnCoulter.com. You're working on some stuff now. We are looking forward to it. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Great to talk to you. Bye-bye.